your mind, body, soul, and space being these four foundational elements that work together. And that's the work that I do with my clients.
Welcome to the Phase 4 podcast, inspired by Vishen Lakiani and Ajit Nawalkar, co-founders of EverCoach, a division of Mindvalley. In this podcast, we speak to coaches and creatives about where they were, where they are, and where they are going. This is an intersection of what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower. My guest today is Kate S. Evans, and she is an author, a coach, a psychologist, a yoga teacher, much more. We're going to talk about all that today, plus her new book. And Kate, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, definitely grateful. I love all the things you're doing. If I could go back to school and do something, it would be psychology. So this is right up my alley. And
Cool.
yeah, I always just kind of begin with tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up, you're in lots of spaces, but how did you end up in some of those spaces?
One of my current things that I'm doing is the decluttering coaching. I'm going to go backwards. I've been in psychology for over 20 years. Before that, I've got a bachelor's of fine arts. So I was a graphic designer, and I decided in my late 20s, I was going back to school for psychology because I was just called to it. And actually, there's a whole story about that has to do with the TV show Home Improvement. So it's really weird as to how I decided to become a psychologist. But and I have focused on my work really on women's empowerment, and that's what I was doing. And then I was working on myself and doing my own inner work and physical work and spiritual work and all this. In 2018, a whole bunch of things came together, and I suddenly started decluttering my own home because I thought I was a slob. It turns out I'm not. I just had too much stuff and didn't know what to do and didn't have systems, and cleaned up my own home, and it felt so great. I was just like, I want everyone to feel this good. So I started putting this onto my clients and started asking them about their homes. And it turned out they had all these issues within their own homes with their stuff. So then that turned into this secondary business. So I have a therapy practice and I have a decluttering coaching practice. And in 2018, that happened to have been when I got certified as a yoga instructor, because why not have your fingers in 30,000 different pies at one time? I keep telling myself every year, you are not going to get another certification. You will not go back to school. You will not do anything new. And then I do something new. And at the same time that I was opening my decluttering coaching practice, my oldest friend came to me. She's a writing coach, and she said, "Hey, do you want to write a book?" I said, "Yes, I do." She said, No, seriously, do you want to write a book?" I said, "Yes, no, seriously, I do." Because she was working on getting certification as a writing coach. So she helped me to get my book written. And my book is called Ditch Your Sht, decluttering your mindset to declutter your home. And that was in 2020. It takes a long time to get a book written, get an agent, get a publisher. So my book is now coming out this fall. I mean, it's just all over the place. Like I say, fingers in lots of different pies. And I keep telling myself, no, don't do another thing. And I still have other ideas. It just doesn't stop. Can't stop.
I don't think it will, right? It might not. My buddy and I were talking about this the other day. It used to be like a person would have the same job for 40 years. And there was this saying, I don't know if you remember, jack of all trades, master of none. Well, now it seems like it's almost the opposite, where you need to be a jack of all trades, and because it's moving so fast.
Well, and I think it is, especially for the generations that are coming up. So I'm 50, which is insane to me that I'm 50 at this point. But and yes, it used to be you stayed in a job, you retired from that job. But for the generations coming up behind me, what it really is you get into a job and then you leave that job and you go into another job and you get a raise because you got into another job. But then there's also this thing of not being afraid to change careers at a certain point. And yes, you may have to take a pay cut because you changed careers. When I went back to school in my late 20s, I had to take a pay cut, but I was only in my late 20s, so it wasn't that big of a pay cut. But there were some people in my program in grad school who were older than I was. There's one woman who was a lawyer, and she was a very successful lawyer, but she was going back to school to become a psychologist. And I mean, I think she cut her pay down by like a quarter at least. And she had to, build it back up. But to have the willingness to follow your heart, your dreams. And I think that that message has come to these generations. So I'm Gen X. I think our generation kind of started this idea of it is okay to follow your dreams and it is okay to start over, and you don't have to just stay in the same place just because that's where you started. So please, please, please follow your dreams. Be sensible about it too, of course, but if you have your gut, you have an instinct, follow that. I did that and I'm so happy in my life.
Yeah, no doubt.
Do it.
I think, is it Fido or whatever, that book, Socrates, The Trial of Socrates, and he talks about how when he's in front of them, like, I have this voice that always guides me to do the right thing, or if something bad's about to happen, this voice will tell me not to do it, or it's like guiding him, that intuition you're talking about. And at the trial, there is no voice, so he's like, I know I'm doing the right thing here.
Yeah, we have, if you think about your chakra system, we have
Yeah.
our third eye that is your inner wisdom. You listen to that thing. And you have to understand the difference between your inner wisdom and your freaked out, frightened, anxious voice, the paranoid voice. You do have
Analyzer.
yes, you do have to know the difference between those. But if you can quiet down the noise, quiet down the shoulds, the have tos, the the fears, the hurts, the all of that stuff. There is this quiet voice under all of it that is guiding you. And if you trust yourself, I mean, this inner trust. So if we talk chakra system, now we move down to the heart chakra, which is in your chest, the
Green light.
all chakras between your eyes. Yeah. It's in just trusting yourself and going for it and believing that you can do the thing. And it's amazing what we can accomplish. And so I hope that this world, these generations, is Gen Y, so I guess that's the millennials, right? And then Gen Z, and then we've got Gen Alpha, I think is the one that they're the littles right now.
We're at Alpha
I
now,
hope
yeah.
that I hope these generations will take these lessons and they will run this world from a place of trusting their heart and soul and not just greed and power and fear and some of those things that human beings have kind of been using for millennia.
Yeah, I think the kids, like I have young kids and they see them and their friends, just the way they talk, the style, like even something as subtle as just pink is cool for boys, right? But I think we see now these kids are coming in here, they're already attuned. They don't have to go through like this crazy, maybe they will, but it seems like they're just a lot wiser already. When I talk to young people, I'm just amazed at the vision and the ideas like you're talking about. They do trust their heart, it seems.
Nice. Well, and if this world gives them the space to trust their hearts, isn't that nice? Because I think that earlier generations were not given that space.
Like,
Even My
Yeah,
job
I agree. I
was
think
not get it recently.
I think there's something with abundance where every other generation was starving and there's 12 kids and there was no food, and now there's just a abundance of everything, so they're coming in, they're not seeing it that way. We're like, we don't have enough money for food or whatever. And it's a lot different. You said something earlier where there's the analyzer and your intuition, and they're both trying to get your attention. Maybe this is the good wolf or the bad wolf. So which one do you feed, and how do you know which one to feed?
Well, it's going to depend on the situation, isn't it? Yeah, but that takes the sitting back and the taking a deep breath. I tell my clients that all the time. Slow down. Just slow down. It's okay. Slow down and take a deep breath and check in to see which part of you needs to be listened to. Which part is, do we need to go with some logic here and kind of do our check boxes? Do we need to sit and listen to the heart, listen to the gut? What is it? But you can't figure that out if you're anxiously running and going at 30,000 miles an hour. You have to kind of sit back, let your shoulders come down out of your ears, take a deep breath, let it go. And it is hilarious how often I will say to clients, take a deep breath. And they say they're taking a deep breath, but I don't see their chest move.
They're holding their breath.
Yeah, and I say, "No, no, seriously, take a deep breath." And they say, I did. What? How could you have taken a deep breath if your body didn't move? No, and so here, let me teach you how to take a deep breath. Okay, so in through the nose, let your body expand, let your chest expand, and out through the mouth. Ah.
And in that, you'll reset your nervous system a little,
Most
and
definitely.
you be able to make a better decision. It sounds a lot masculine, feminine, right? Sometimes we need to think, and yeah, and then there's times where we need to just move from our heart.
Well, yin and yang, masculine, feminine, and yin and yang. And those are those things, those balancing pieces. I mean, it's such a beautiful concept to always keep in your mind. And I ah, screensaver is a yin yang. That's great. Um, the and with that yin yang, what's cool about that symbol, and always remembering that there's a little bit of the feminine in the masculine, and there's always a little bit of the masculine in the feminine.
So,
It's not 100%.
so does that mean when things are really bad, there's some kind of good in there that we can harvest?
Most definitely. Of course, there's always something there. If we, again, take your deep breath and you sit back and you look, and because when you're all freaked out, you can't see clearly. But think about in your lifetime, there have been moments when things have just fallen to crap around you. And yet, something came out of it. You learned something, you advanced somehow, you evolved somehow, something changed in your life, something happened. There was a nugget of good in there. But in those moments, we get so freaked that we think it's all bad, but these extremes kind of don't exist. They're just not really there. They're there. Give yourself a chance to think about it and settle down a bit. Remember, it's going to be okay. I mean, you've
Yeah.
survived everything so far.
Yeah. I I'm learning this the last couple of years more than ever is everything is a spectrum. And so same with that. When you're getting emotionally high or low, it's a spectrum, and is try to bring it back in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the imagery of like a teeter totter, and it might be, I don't even know that they still have these types of teeter totters on playgrounds anymore because I think they really were kind of dangerous. We used to sit on them and somebody would, get off the other side and you suddenly hit your butt on the ground. It was terrible. But if you would stand on the teeter-totter in the middle, again, not a safe thing to do at all. You stand on the fulcrum of the teeter-totter and just make those small adjustments in the middle, you get balance and you feel good and you feel safe, but you don't get balance by running from one end of the teeter-totter to the other. That's chaos.
Great metaphor. I I kind of think when you say that, like people are looking for change or they don't like their situation and they want it to change overnight. And it's like it took you 40 years to get here. It's going to take a little bit of time to get to the other end of that teeter-totter.
Oh my goodness, I say that to people all the time. It took you 40 years to get here, so you're not going to change this overnight. I totally tell people that all the time. Like, how long is it going to take us to create this change to get you to your goal? Simmer down.
Yeah. Wow. And so the book, it's really also another beautiful metaphor where you're trying to declutter the outside world, but you're also trying to declutter the inside world. And if you can do one, the other one should fall in line.
Well, absolutely, because this book it's not just about your home. It's the first part of it is really talking about yourself. It's talking about stages of readiness to change. It's talking about your thoughts, limiting beliefs, fears, perfectionism. It's talking about what your values are and how that shows up in the stuff you hold on to in your home. It's talking about what are the habits that you have, the things that kind of shape your day and shape your life, and what's holding you back because of these habits. What are positive habits, negative habits? And then how the heck do you set a goal? Because honestly, I don't think most of us were even taught a positive way to set a goal. So that's even the first part of this book before we even get to talking about the house. And so the second part of the book is about applying all that stuff to the house. But this is creating change within ourselves and then seeing how connected that is to the space we live in, because that space reflects us and we reflect that space. And you can't pretend that if you live in a completely jammed out, cluttered space, that you're going to feel super relaxed and happy and content and satisfied. I mean, come on.
Right.
Your energy is going to be all kinds of stuck up and blah.
Some feng shui in there.
Super duper feng shui. Yes, I do have some feng shui in the book. And yeah, it's feng shui is very much about energetic flow, getting things moving, clearing things out. Feng shui talks about decluttering and giving yourself permission to have your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual self be settled and cared for.
Right.
Which honestly, our culture doesn't necessarily really do a lot of valuing on the surface.
100%. My desk is in the middle of the room. There's a door over here and a window over here. And people are always like, why don't you put your desk in the corner or up against the wall? And it's like, why do I want to look at a wall? This is nice. It can flow. Exactly what you're saying. The magic can just come through and do its thing.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That's my desk is smack dab up against a window, and I've got plants all in front of me in this window. So I'm just like surrounded by green. And I can look out at the expanse because I used to have it so it was like turned a different way and it was just like kind of weird. And this way I get that green expanse because I sit and stare at this computer all day long because I'm in sessions with my clients. Well, I like you don't. I think I just, even though I wasn't right up against a wall, I was still looking at a wall, even though it was the wall across the room.
And it affects your energy, right?
Most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Everything does.
right. So you're talking about goals. Are you talking about SMART goals, or do you have some different way you're setting goals? Or
I definitely kind of took from SMART goals. It's not necessarily really labeling it as SMART goals, in the way that I'm talking about it in the book, but the idea of having clarity, measurability, understanding, is this actually going to take versus how much time do I want it to take? Uh, being aware. I mean, that's really what SMART goals are about, is having clarity around what your 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 goal is, what your task is, instead of just being willy-nilly about it. And I think too often people say, "Yeah, I want to do let's if we're talking about clutter, I want to declutter my closet in 6 hours." And really we've got like 12 hours of work here. And I think I've got the energy to do this all at one time, when really you've got like 2 hours of energy. And you fry yourself, and then you're in the middle of the project, and then it's all over the place and you don't want to go back to it. Now you've got a mess and you feel defeated, and it's nuts. Okay. But what if you came at this and you were a little more honest with yourself? You're a little more realistic and said, yeah, this is going to take some time. And you're willing to pivot. You're willing to be adaptable. That's important too. Adaptability. Human beings are adaptable.
yeah, for sure. You have to stretch yourself. I like the idea that you're you're setting it up for success beforehand instead of like just trying to go into it and do it, and then like you say you get defeated and oh I didn't accomplish it, and then the negative self-talk will start again.
Oh my goodness. We are so prone to feeling like failures because we did not set ourselves up for success, in and just going, oh, well, I guess that's it.
Right.
Terrible. I suck. Well,
That's funny.
and then did you just give up? And
The,
well, no.
the guy from Google, Larry Page, he doesn't do SMART goals. He tells his employees to make half of your goals SMART goals, but make half of them so unrealistic that you probably will never even crush it. And then what happens out of that? You got something like Gmail came out of that. There's a bunch of different Google programs that come out of that because people are just making these crazy ambitious goals. But when you want something bad enough, the universe conspires.
Sure. I I think it's amazing to think wild and unruly of like, what could I have in my life? It's manifesting cool, huge, like, life. What do you want your life to look like? And create vision boards of like, what is this life gonna look like? Am I gonna have travel? Am I gonna have what kind of relationships? What kind of a home? And creating this picture of this existence, and creating big, wild, dragon-like concepts. I love that idea. And in the day to day, we kind of take it down to what can I actually accomplish today. So
True story.
yeah, finding some sort of mixture in there.
Yeah, like you make the big plan, but then you take little tiny steps and
Mhm.
don't get overwhelmed by the bigness of the plan. There's one big point I'd like to draw out of this is that, yeah, when we do those big plans and people get overwhelmed by, oh my God, how am I going to do that? Once you start moving towards it and you become a different person, that
Mhm.
person will know how to do it, but the person at the start might not.
I love that point. Yes, absolutely. We are not the same person at the beginning of the journey as we are in the middle of the journey as we are at the end of the journey. And there's that trust again that if I eat the elephant one bite at a time, I will, I will, I will meet myself at each point and I will evolve. Human beings are designed to evolve. We are designed to change. Now, we're a little afraid of change because change is an unknown. So we get frightened of that because, well, what if it's a bad thing? What if there's something bad on the other side? Well, what if there's something, what if you can create solutions when you hit something that is, you know, weird or strange? It's the mindset that you go into it with. It's the mindset that you hit the roadblock with. And so as you evolve along that journey, that person that you are keeps on changing. So like you said, like that person you are down the line becomes somebody who knows how to approach the um the new thing.
Yeah. Like it reminds me of the hero's journey, right? As you start to move, you gain new knowledge, new wisdom, and slowly you're becoming a different person, the person you wanted to be. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I love this conversation. When I saw psychologist, I was thinking, I took like a first year psych course, and then you start reading the book and going, "Hey, is that me? Do I have that? Am I that? Am I that?"
Oh my goodness. It is the thing. You always diagnose yourself with everything you study. And the worst thing is when there's this one class that is it maladapt? What is the class? Oh gosh, it's
Abnormal.
abnormal psychology. Thank you. And you start reading the descriptions of these things and you think, oh my gosh, do I have these personality disorders? Am I schizophrenic? Am I all these things? I freaked out in grad school because in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is the thing that has all the diagnoses in it, and that's what we go to diagnose people with, the depressive diagnoses. One of the last things at the end of every list of here's the criteria for this diagnosis is if not otherwise explained by a thyroid disorder. Well, when I was in grad school, I was diagnosed with hyperthyroidism. So I didn't understand what this meant. Not otherwise, if not otherwise, whatever. And so I had to go to my professor and say, what is going on? Does this, I thought this meant that like I had every depressive disorder in the entire DSM. No, what it meant was people who have thyroid disorders sometimes present with depressive symptoms.
Wow, I didn't know
So
that.
I know, and this fun facts that you learn. And because I had just been diagnosed with this thyroid disorder, I suddenly had to learn this thing. But it freaked me out. It completely scared me. And then once I came to understand, I was like, oh, so, but hey, if I'm having some depressive symptoms, could be because of this thyroid thing that I'm dealing with. Cool.
Wow.
But I have a cousin who is in sports medicine, and when he was in school, he was convinced he had a brain tumor, and he's younger than I am, and I think he was emailing me, texting me something. I had to talk him down out of his tree because he was so convinced. I said, what is the likelihood? Seriously, dude. This is let's go through it. And we just kind of walked through the whole thing. And by the end of it, he's like, okay, you're right. I don't have a brain tumor. But he was doing the exact same thing. It's medical students, psych students, everybody diagnoses themselves with everything that they study.
Wow.
We're a mess.
There's a podcast called Diary of a CEO, and it's this British guy named Steve Bartlett. I don't know if you know him. He was on Shark Tank, their version of Shark Tank.
Yeah.
But anyway, he had one of the writers of the DSM on his podcast, and the guy was saying that if he could go back, he would change some of the things, especially about meds.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think we're starting to see it where, like, I guess top down, bottom up, right? But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it might be some better ideas than just shoving pills into people's face.
You think? Mm, I was on Wellbutrin myself for some time. I have an anxiety disorder myself, and I fully support. When I first came into this field, I was very against medication use, and then I saw how useful it can be for some people, and I really, really do support it in many cases. I really do. I held off on utilizing it for my own anxiety disorder for a long time. I utilize my self-care, yoga, all the things, and got to a point where I needed help. And so I went on Wellbutrin, and it helped. It really did. And then in March of 2023, I I had a seizure, and it was actually caused by dehydration from the prep for a colonoscopy. So I keeled over in the waiting room prior to the procedure. So I was in the right place to have a full on, like I think they would call it grand mal. They don't even call it that. They just call it a seizure now. But it was the whole shebang. I woke up in the ER. But one of the things was that one of the very, very rare side effects of Wellbutrin is that it lowers the seizure threshold.
Good to know.
So, my husband was super ticked about the medication, and my neurologist said, "Wait, you can never take this medication again." I said, "Yeah, sure as heck, never taking it again." Um, It may or may not have had anything to do with the fact that I had the seizure, because I had been vomiting from the preparation for the colonoscopy. I was dry heaving in the bathroom. I'm sorry if this is very graphic, but I had been dry heaving in the bathroom of the, you know, before the procedure. Like, I thought my head was going to explode there because it was just so severe. But I have not gone back on a medication since then, and have just worked very, very diligently with cognitive work, cognitive behavioral work.
too.
Yeah. Really working with my mindset, asking myself questions in the moments when I feel the anxiety, working with breath work, working with kind of in the moment meditative work. Um, you know, off and on taking my walks. Like I said, I'll say yoga over and over again, because yoga has been my lifeline for so many years. And yeah, that's just my story. And
Love it.
I I don't I don't know what my future will hold, but I don't anticipate going on another psychotropic for my anxiety. But again, I don't know. That being said, I do keep a prescription for diazepam just in case because I have periodic panic attacks. So I find kind of a middle ground in there.
Yeah.
And so with the DSM is a very complicated manual, and they redid it. It was a number of years ago, and gets redone about, I don't know, every 12 to 20 years or something like that. And there are so many things that every time they redo it, there's so many things that feel so outdated about it already.
Yeah, for sure.
And we are learning more and more about medication use, about diagnoses. If you look back at old versions of the DSM, you would be shocked and dismayed.
That's what the guy was talking about.
Yeah.
That was this guy, and he was like, I wrote it.
Mhm.
So I ask everyone this question. This is the Phase 4 podcast. And phase 4 in the 6 phase meditation by Vishen Lakiani, it's all about creating your future 3 years out. So where is Kate S. Evans 3 years from today?
Hmm. Okay, so 3 years from today, I have a second book in publication. I'm uh, working on a third book. I love writing. I've always wanted to be an author, so this is exciting. When I was in grad school, we were told to draw a picture of where we ultimately wanted to see ourselves, and I drew a picture of myself sitting on a beach with a laptop, and I got criticized by a professor because why would I be working on a beach? And I said, because I want to be writing on a beach. So I'm in Bali with my husband and writing. And because of the joy of the internet, I can be there for a while, seeing clients now and then. And we're traveling. I think that's what I can see for right now.
That's so awesome. That's like the best question, but I see you going in the future and plucking it out, and I love it.
Mm, it's lovely. I will tell you, eons ago. So there was a chunk of time where I was lost in my 20s, and I worked for a grocery store, the Jewel Foods, which here in Chicago is one of the primary grocery stores. And they wanted me to work in upper management, so they're training me. And in one of the interviews they had for the training program, they asked me, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And I sat there as I don't know, I was like 26 at the time, said, I can't answer that question. I flat out told them I would not answer where I saw myself in 5 years. But that was the 26-year-old me, and I think you're in such flux at that age. And I think at 50, I'm 2 months out from 51, a month and a half out from 51. Yes, love it, love it. I think that it's easier for me to see 3 years out because I'm so much more solid in who I am. And gosh, even that question, like 3 years out, gosh, I see myself on the beach. I see myself, uh, you know, walking, doing down dog. I see myself snorkeling, and I see my head and I trying to grab sharks because we have a tendency to do this. If you stick us in the water and there are sharks around, we try to chase them. There's something wrong with us. It's really weird.
That's funny. I think maybe as we begin to wind down, if this episode resonates with you, please like, subscribe, share, and reach out to Kate, whether it's psychologist, decluttering coach. We're going to share the information about our book, but reach out to Kate. You've heard from this conversation what she's all about. And I kind of let everyone take it near before I ask my final questions, Kate. I let them just take it wherever they want. So if it's like a message of hope or inspiration, or if you have something to sell or all of it together, just take it wherever you want.
Wow. Okay. What do I do with it? I guess where I'm at in life is really a place of listening to myself, and I would ask that other people listen to themselves, that you give yourself permission to take that break like we were talking about earlier and listen to yourself. Give yourself time to heal now and then. When you feel overwhelmed, step back. Take your breath. If you've got to take a day to do nothing, to heal, to rest, we don't do that enough in our lives. I recently had to do that because I was burnt, and I had just finished some edits on the book, and I had been doing some other things, and I had nothing left. So I took a few days to do nothing. And so I would say to others, give yourself permission to heal. And as if you don't give yourself permission to heal, what good are you to yourself or to others? and give yourself permission to have a home that you love, a life that you love, relationships that you love. You're allowed to have that.
Yeah. Taking a day to heal or to rest, whatever, to avoid burnout, all of it. It's so important. And the fact, like you're saying, we just go, 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 go. But then all of a sudden comes a hurricane or a tornado, and then we're forced to do it. And it's like nothing changes. You still get back to it in a couple of days. So yeah, really good advice. My final question is, how can people reach you?
So you can find me on Instagram. Um, let's see, you'll put the information down below. So I'm
Yeah.
on Instagram and Facebook. I and you can find me at soulfulspacecoaching.com. You can always email me. You can message me. Go for it. I love answering questions. And I think that in this day and age of all the different ways to contact somebody, I think those are the primary ways to find me. And, I Ditch Your Sht is going to be coming out on October 7th of 2025, but it is available for pre-sale. So I really encourage you to check it out. It is the book that you need to read before any other decluttering book, but it's also maybe a book that you need to read even if you don't think you have clutter. So think about
Right.
that.
That's brilliant. I think everyone has a little bit of clutter.
Mhm.
Soulful space coaching, spacing. That's
Soulful
how'd you come up with
space.
that name? Soulful space coaching. I forgot to mention that earlier. I apologize.
So that's well, soulful space is the name of my decluttering coaching business, and so I came up with the name just based on the how did I come up with that? Just based on who I am and how I want people to feel. So I have this concept of your mind, body, soul, and space being these four foundational elements that work together. And that's the work that I do with my clients. And wanted the space that I create with my clients to be a soulful one that they can live in and love in and do all the things in.
Amazing. Ditch your shit, declutter your mindset. Kate Evans, I'm so grateful for your time today. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, this has been wonderful. I love conversations that go in new and delightful directions. Thank you for having me.